Well, I'm sick today, so sorry about my voice, but I just want to get this review finished. This is the somewhat rare 8GB version of the RX 6500 XT. It must not have sold well in China or wherever they're being sold because they're starting to come into the US now. And you can buy one on Amazon new for $180. Yeah, not a good deal considering that's the price of a used RX 6600 on eBay. I've had this graphics card on my computer for the last week, and everything you see in this video was recorded and edited on the 6500 XT 8GB, and things have been surprisingly smooth going. As it turns out, when you solve the main problems with the 6500 XT, all that's left is just a boring, low-end graphics card. But what were those problems? Well, at launch, the 6500 XT had 5 main issues that reviewers picked up on. In order of most to least significant, these were 1. The very high starting price of $200. 2. The very limiting 4GB of video memory. 3. The very limiting PCIe X4 interface, which could cause performance issues on systems that only supported PCIe 3.0. And 4. The 64-bit memory bus, which left the card starved for memory bandwidth in a lot of games. And lastly, the lack of a video encoder, which meant you couldn't use Radeon software to take video captures or do recording using this GPU. Alongside PCIe 3 and 4 testing, I've also included overclocked results with the PCIe 4.0 setting, since I want to give this thing every chance possible to succeed, and of course resizable bar was enabled for all of the testing. Also remember that while recording, performance takes a hit, and there will be benchmark charts at the end of the video showing actual data I collected for performance. Starting out with Counter-Strike 2, because it's somewhat new and appropriate to test on an entry-level card like this. As you can see, it's really no challenge for the 8GB 6500 XT, running at hundreds of frames per second. I was also able to turn on AMD Anti-Lag 2 for whatever that's worth, and I even tested it at 1440p. And it was still staying well above the 180 FPS target that I consider to be a proper, low latency, high FPS experience. Video memory usage is at 5GB, even with low settings, so the extra video memory is coming in handy here. Doom Eternal is absolutely flying on this 6500 XT, just like Counter-Strike 2. VRAM usage sits just above 4GB normally, leaving room to enable the maximum quality textures with VRAM to spare. We see consistent triple-digit frame rates, only interrupted with heavy effects like using the ice grenade, which will cause heavy performance drops on even very powerful computers. Now time for the real test. Doom the Dark Ages will run on this 8GB GPU, and even gets playable frame rates with 1080p FSR quality, which uses a 720p internal resolution upscaled to 1080p. You can get a consistent 60 FPS if you play at native 720p with no upscaling, but I doubt any of you want to do that. You might already be able to tell, but this performance, while good, is still well short of what the RTX 3050 6GB can do, likely down to the fact that that card has more video memory bandwidth than the 6500 XT. Still though, this performance would be impossible on the 4GB version, so that's something. Oh, and the performance you'll see on the charts at the end of the video were recorded using the Siege map, since it's a particularly demanding section of the game. Now, I don't own the new God of War game because I still haven't beaten God of War 2018, so this will have to suffice. At 1080p high settings, the game runs fairly well and VRAM usage settles at around 6 gigabytes. While it's not quite 60 FPS, this is a single player game that most people would probably be playing on a controller, so it's not like it matters too much. I don't really play GTA 5, but I did buy the game a long time ago, one of my first PC games I ever bought. Testing the enhanced edition of the game, with the high RT preset at 1080p, things are running just fine, with 60 plus FPS average and good frame times. So the 6500 XT 8GB can handle some easier ray tracing at 1080p. I also wanted to include testing for some more popular indie games. You can see Subnautica is running just fine at 1080p high settings. This open world survival horror game is a modern classic that everyone should try at some point. I also tested Repo, Lethal Company, and Phasmophobia. However, they all ran flawlessly with hundreds of frames per second, so I didn't feel the need to include them here.
The Aurora suffered orbital hull failure. Cause unknown. 0 human life signs detected.
Here are the benchmark charts. Feel free to pause and look at them if you care. I've also included a chart showing the performance increase from PCIe 3.0 to 4.0 as a percentage for convenience sake. So looking at the data, you can see in some cases moving from PCIe 3.0 to 4.0 helps the frame time pacing of games, but interestingly enough, the averages are still good using PCIe 3.0. It's entirely possible that because this card has 8 gigabytes of VRAM, it is less reliant on the memory bus to constantly switch assets in and out of memory to save space, and you can get by with fewer performance drops. Either way, the 8 gigabyte version of the card seems to be running things well, both with PCIe 3.0 and 4.0, which is something I'm not so sure would be the case with the 4 gigabyte version. So, should you buy the 8 gigabyte 6500 XT? That's up to you.